Hey pen people, today we're going to take a look at a fountain pen ink, one of my favorites actually. This is Lamy Benitoite, and yes, I did look up how to say that, so hopefully I'm saying it more or less right. I think I've heard people say Benitoite. It's definitely not right, it's Benitoite. This is one of Lamy's Crystal Inks. They came out with this series a couple years ago, and this is the only one I've tried. It's great. I've heard some people complain about this line of inks because they think that Lamy just came up with a way to get you to spend more money on their inks because they're a little more expensive than their standard inks, but they're still not terribly bad as far as price goes. I think this was $16. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while. But there are two reasons I got this one. One, I'm a big fan of Noodler's 54th Massachusetts, the color and the permanence at least, but that ink just is so gushy, runny, uncontrollable. So I struggle with it. And this is not the same color, but it's comparable to me at least. So this is kind of a nice alternative for me. And it's not 100% waterproof, but it is very water resistant, which is why I got this one. As far as I know, out of their crystal line of inks, this is the only one that is fairly water resistant. Maybe some others have some water resistance, I don't know. But this one, I remember when it first came out, the Goulets were like kind of surprised at how water resistant this is. So that's why I got it. It's been a great ink, and I'll tell you why I love it, and I'll tell you why some people don't love it. Okay, so I've got my TWSBI Eco all inked up with Lamy Benitoite here. We'll come back to that in a second. First, let's take a look at the box and the bottle it comes in. So the box is nice. It's not the most luxurious box, but I don't know, I don't buy inks for the box. But it's a nice box, it really is. So this is what the bottle looks like. It's fairly small. It's a 1 fluid ounce or 30 milliliter bottle. So fairly small, and I like how compact it is. It's actually the only bottle of ink I have so far that fits in this pen box that I have here. My camera's a little close, so I don't know if I can get this fully in the frame, but my dad gave this to me as a graduation present. It's really nice. And it has this little ink compartment here, but nothing fits except for this guy. So that's fun. The one drawback to the compact size is that it can be a little bit difficult to get a full fill or any kind of fill from this bottle. I've used about half of the ink in here, and it's so shallow that I can't even fully submerge my nib really anymore. So that's kind of a drawback. It's not the end of the world. You can use a syringe. What I did the last time, I filled up this pen, since you can't really use a syringe with this pen very well. I put some of this in a sample vial and then filled it up from there. So that works pretty well for me. So not the end of the world. It's not a deal breaker, especially if you love this ink, because I mean, bottles are nice, but you want the ink. So there are ways to get around that. But I wish it was a little bit more functional. But it is a pretty bottle. I like the triangular shape. And this is, let's see, it's got a nice seal on it, nice rubber seal on the inside there. It looks like metal, but it's plastic, this cap. But the paint hasn't been chipping or scratching off, which is nice. So this bottle has continued to look really nice. Okay, enough said about the bottle. We're here for the ink. Okay, so let's talk about the color really quick. Whoops, I just got crusty ink stuff everywhere. Okay, so like I said, to me, the color is comparable to Noodler's 54th Massachusetts a little bit. It's kind of a bluey green, teal kind of color. I'm really bad at my color names, so don't quote me on any of that, but it's kind of a blue-green. So this is one of my old lists of inks where I've sampled them. I have a new one that's much nicer looking, but this one is where I did Lamy Benitoite, as well as 54th Massachusetts, and Rohr and Klinger Salix, or Salix, however you say that. Those three, in my mind, are kind of in the same color family, even if they're not like exactly the same color. And all of these inks have different properties and behave differently, but Salix and 54th Massachusetts are probably more popular and more well known than Benitoite, so I feel like they are kind of in that genre of color, I guess. So anyway, and we might as well go ahead and talk about water resistance while we're here. So Rohrer & Klinger Salix is a iron gall ink, I think, so it's pretty darn water resistant. 54th Massachusetts is amazingly water resistant, one of the most water resistant inks I've ever seen. So Lamy Benitoite is less so, but if you get water on it, the color is going to start to lift up and smear, but your lines, the dark part of your lines, is going to stay intact. So it will stay legible even if it gets very wet. So that's really all I can ask of a nice ink. You know, it's great when there's one that's 100% waterproof. As a writer and a journaler, I really like that, but as long as I can feel confident that my writing will remain legible if it gets water damaged, that's enough for me. So yeah, that's one of the big pluses of this ink. I think now's a good time for us to do our writing sample, and then we'll keep talking about the ink after I'm done with that. Okay, let's talk about the quote really quick here. It says, "High technology has done us one great service. It has retaught us the delight of performing simple and primordial tasks, chopping wood, building a fire, drawing water from a spring." And that is by Edward Abbey, who I honestly have no idea who that is. I pulled this from a book, it's a quote right here, but I pulled it from a book called The Home Place by J. Drew Lanham. He is a birder, an ornithologist, a bird scientist, and he's also a black man. So it's kind of like this, a book about his life, and kind of about this, the intersection of these two things, his racial identity and also his passion, and maybe a little bit about how those two going together aren't necessarily what a lot of people might expect. And so he's run into some bumps in the road as he's gone down this career and things. An interesting book for sure. Anyway, so back to the quote here. So why I chose this is that I think it actually goes hand in hand with the fountain pen hobby. You know, fountain pens used to just be everyday tools. I remember showing my grandpa some of my fountain pen collection. He likes fountain pens. He doesn't have any anymore, but he likes them still. He likes looking at my collection. And he told me that back in the day, having a fountain pen was like having a smartphone. It was just kind of a part of your life, and not so much anymore. It's very optional. But I feel like having smartphones and computers and all of these other things has retaught us the joy of using analog tools like fountain pens. I like that. I like that technology, as great as it is, one reason I think it's great is because it kind of gives us this challenge to pull back and to kind of exercise some self-control, to go back to when things were a little bit less convenient. But it's kind of relaxing to step away and use something like this. At least it can be. By the same token, though, I think we have to be careful not to turn fountain pens into the new high technology, if that makes sense. Like, sometimes I get so caught up in all of my cool pens that I am tempted to kind of forget why I got them, which was to write. It's kind of a tough balance to figure out. You have to enjoy the reasons you got the tools as much or more than you enjoy the actual tools that you're using. Anyway, okay, let's talk more about this ink. So this is my extra fine nib, so fairly fine. And I hope the color is coming across okay. I really struggle to feel like I'm getting the color accurately on my camera. Even if I was though, your screen might be calibrated differently than mine. And so it's just, there's no telling exactly what you're gonna see as far as color. So just look it up yourself, look at some different pen websites, look at different writing samples so you can kind of get a better idea of color. But I'll do my best to be accurate, and I gave you those two kind of comparisons of 54th Massachusetts and Rohrer & Klinger Salix. So again, those are not exacts, but it's kind of in that ballpark. But one thing that is a little bit different about this ink, at least with 54th Massachusetts, I don't have as much experience with Salix, but this ink, I feel like you can get a decent amount of shading with this ink. So that's fun. If you're into shading, you might enjoy this ink. It's a nice color. One complaint that some people have raised about this ink is that it's not quite as saturated as it could be. There's maybe a little bit of gray in it. I don't mind. I think it's a nice, subtle color. It's like a really pleasant, fun color, but it's not hard on the eyes. You don't have to wear sunglasses to look at it because it's so vibrant or something. So it's an ink that can be nice for journaling. It can be nice for the office, more professional use possibly, because it's kind of a mellow ink. It's not super loud or anything like that. So dry time, I don't really keep track of dry time very well, but I've never really had any smearing issues with this ink. I think it's actually kind of a dry ink. Not super dry. In some of my pens with bigger nibs, it actually writes fairly wet, I think. But I think that it dries pretty quickly. If you leave your pen uncapped too long, you might get some hard starts. And actually, this is the other complaint that people have raised about this pen, and I have had this issue with some pens, is that if your pen doesn't have a good inner cap that seals your pen well, it will dry out in the nib and you will have some pretty ridiculous hard starts sometimes. I've had that happen with my Pilot Metropolitans, and I can't remember what else right now, but I've never had that happen with the TWSBI Eco. They have really good inner caps that seal things really well. If you have a platinum with a slip and seal kind of thing going on, you probably won't have any problems. I don't have any problems with my Lamy Safaris. So yeah, so there are lots of pens where you're not gonna deal with that issue. But if your pen doesn't have an inner cap, if it doesn't seal super well, this might not be the ideal ink for that pen. Okay, the last two things I want to talk about are ease of cleaning and bleed and feather. Before I do that though, I'm so bad at remembering this, but if you could please just hit the like button for me. That is just a really simple way for you to support my channel and help it grow. So thank you very much for your support. Okay, so bleed and feather, no feathering whatsoever. I love this ink for that. It's a very crisp ink. And as far as bleed goes, let's take a look here. Ugh. Nothing. So you can definitely see the ghosting or whatever. It's you can see where you wrote, but it's not coming through at all. So good enough for me. And cleaning, with water resistant inks, you never know what you're gonna get with that, but I've never had any issues with cleaning this ink out of my pens. I don't notice any staining. It doesn't take a super long time to clean. It doesn't gunk up your pen. So overall, it's a really well-behaved ink. Yeah, it might be a little bit dry in certain pens. It might hard start in certain pens that don't seal well. But overall, I really like this ink. It's a great color. It's got some good water resistance and it's got some shading. There's just a lot to like. So check it out and I'll talk to you later. Bye.